We're speaking of making a difference. Scott Dawson and Scott Lenning are here of the Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association. We have been working with Scott and his staff for years. You know, we celebrate 20 years. Wow. In January, the Rick and Bubba 20-year anniversary tour will start that spring. We'll go around and reminisce over the last 20 years. Looking at the Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association and just Scott Dawson, the friend, you can find him getting himself into situations with this show throughout Best of CDs, iTunes, a lot of those Scott Dawson moments. Fat Fest, he's been part of that. Stadium Fest, when we got together and started doing those events together, did 3 of those, and have done events all over the Rick and Bubba audience. I mean, everywhere. I mean, the Safe at Home programs, and we've just had a blast. And there's been a lot of that going on. And Scott is here today, Scott and Scott. They've just returned from Egypt.
Yes.
Wow, Egypt.
Well, we weren't looking, but it was offered to us. We do a lot of stuff in the States. My heart is about America. As America goes, so goes the world. But we're always looking to see where God's moving. And we were approached by a ministry that works with the persecuted church, and they said, we'd love for you to see what's going on globally. It's not just in here in the South or in America, but what's happening across the world. And so our first opportunity had to go to North Korea, and we couldn't get everything worked out. So we were offered to go to Cairo, and I was like, "Wow, Cairo!" And that's
a lot of world history.
Yeah, that's a hard sell to your family too. Hey, I'm not going to Augusta, Georgia to do a revival. We're going to Cairo, and when we went, we thought, okay, what's going to happen? A lot of turmoil going on, a lot of situations happening, especially with the persecution of the church. And, it's kind of tough. We got there at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, and we were 24 hours, got into the bus. We went through 7 military checkpoints in about 7 miles, okay? And we're not talking about military checkpoints, just a guy with a Barney Fife gun. We're talking armed tanks mounted with the gun, the machine gun pointed towards you going through it. Well,
that can be unnerving.
Oh my gosh, so you're a little tired, a little worn out. So
I haven't seen that much security since the last time I rode MARTA in Atlanta.
Yeah, for real.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here all week. Yeah. Every day I come in and have to do this.
You are on fire.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm closing my eyes after about the 3rd military checkpoint. And because there's 60% unemployment, people are out at all nights. Kids are playing.
Run that number again. 60%
unemployment. So they're playing soccer out in the middle of the street. My eyes are closed, and the van.
You literally closed your eyes.
I closed my eyes just out of exhaustion. I think the soccer ball goes under the van, and the van runs over the soccer ball, and there is an explosion. I thought we were all. I mean, at that point,
picture this. Picture being in Cairo, Egypt. You're going through checkpoint after checkpoint, military, guns pointed at you, tanks, and you close your eyes and you hear the sound of a soccer ball being run over by the van you're in.
He didn't close his eyes the rest of the week.
Yeah. Did that freak you out?
I had not done something since 1st grade when that took place.
Oh yeah.
I was done.
Oh yeah.
I came out of my seat.
Everything just releases.
Yes. Oh. Because here's the deal. I never felt fear, but you were never comfortable.
Right.
Everywhere you went, we had a security guard with us with a machine gun. We had police security with us.
Well, it's unsettled.
Yeah.
I mean, the government is not even settled. I mean, and I want to get some clarification on that, because one of the things when you and I had a lunch about this that really sticks out is we're living in a time where information is fed to us filtered.
Yep.
All with agenda tied to it, all with propaganda. I mean, really, you can't really trust the news anymore. Journalism is over. And now it's just all, propagating something. So you told me that some of the things we're being told about, number one, and I'll just go in a list.
Okay.
And I can never say his name. The dictator that was overthrown.
Mubarak.
Yep. Mubarak being removed, good thing? The Egyptians?
Yes. Everyone was rejoicing that the tyrant was
So we all agree
removed.
that was good.
Yes.
All right. Then we were told, really, the news told us, that they want the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the government that's going to take over, and the people are going to vote for that, and that's what they want. Now it's starting to get a little shaky on what we're hearing. Not so much.
Boy, people better listen up this morning. I've never been more shocked in my entire life what I found out was going on in Egypt. And to see the story of the church behind it, and we can get into that later.
Yeah.
But just on political scene, when Mubarak was removed, there was elation all across the land. We're finally going to get to vote. Up until that time, you'd show up at the polls, and the boxes would already be stuffed with votes for the dictator. So everyone was excited. Well, when they voted Morsi in, and we have come to find out now, they have documents that Morsi did not even legitimately win the election. His opponent won the election. Now listen to this.
And those you don't know, that was the candidate of the Muslim Brotherhood we're talking about.
Well, Morsi is the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, right.
Okay, the other gentleman.
And we heard, well, that's what the people voted.
Right. Well, okay. The election night, they were told, the churches, go home. Your candidate has won, but we're afraid your churches are going to be burned. So get out, go home.
This is important now. They're telling them, look, don't worry. Your candidate, which is not Morsi, it is not the Muslim Brotherhood, they won. They talked to the Christians, talked to the church.
Yes.
Y'all go home, because when this is announced that Morsi didn't win, they're gonna come after you.
Oh yeah, because the Muslim Brotherhood had really fought to get this election. In fact, not only had they persecuted Christians, they were busing people in.
Right.
They were giving, here's
Sounds
the deal.
familiar.
I mean, an overwhelming majority of Egyptians are illiterate. They cannot read, they cannot write, so they follow what everyone's telling them, and they're trying to get their basic necessities taken care of. So when the Muslim Brotherhood came along, and this is what was told to us, they were providing
By the people, not by some news source.
No,
you were there.
These were countless numbers of vendors on the streets to people who were in meetings. They were provided food, they were provided fuel, and they were provided mobile phone cards. So just go and vote for our candidate. They still didn't get they lost by 200,000 votes to the pro-democracy candidate. And this is when we found out that on an election night, they delayed announcing the winner for 1 week because there were negotiations going on, and they were so fearful of the Muslim Brotherhood violence that they actually negotiated Morsi to win the election of the presidency of Egypt. And our government was involved with that negotiation.
We'll come back. So Morsi did not win the people's votes.
Absolutely not. Lost by 200,000 votes.
And basically he was negotiated into power for fear of repercussion from the Muslim Brotherhood.
And within 1 year, there was a revolt, a rebellion, a recall, if you will, of Morsi's election.
And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back, because that was the next phase of all this. Stay close. It's more about what's really going on in Egypt when we come back.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
Walk like an Egyptian.
So here's where we are if you just joined us. They said talking to the people, they're getting the inside news on, first of all, everybody glad the dictator Mubarak was removed.
Mm-hmm.
Then they were looking forward to an election. The Muslim Brotherhood tried to go out and bus people in. They tried to give people food, water, cell phone cards if you'll vote for the Muslim Brotherhood candidate. Morsi, is that how you say his name?
Morsi. Mm-hmm. They were community organizers.
Right. They were community. It did sound crazily familiar. But anyway, so then the Christians, and I guess even people who are just secular and don't want anything to do with the Muslim Brotherhood, win the election by 200,000 votes. Mm-hmm. They were told to go home. Your candidate has won, but you need to be prepared that the Muslim Brotherhood may have a negative response to that and burn your homes, burn your churches. Because if they come in power, there's no openly being a Christian. That's out.
Right.
So anyway, they're awaiting their candidate to be announced as a winner. They delay the announcement for a week, and then Morsi's announced as the winner, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate, and the Egyptians say, look, your own country, America, got in there and negotiated him being the winner as well.
That's what was told to us, and they have documents.
Right. And then, and now, though, now let's go current day. Then the people revolt against Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, and we have a revolution.
Yeah, well, the upcoming days after his election, he immediately started removing judges, removing people, and started bringing in the Muslim Brotherhood. He really wanted to give Sinai to Hamas so that they can make it immediately an Islamic state. And the people just started going, wait a minute, this is not going to happen. This is not what we voted for. Things were happening across the country. There was so much persecution, and a pivotal event took place when the Muslim Brotherhood took over basically the headquarters of the FBI, their equivalency of the FBI. And they have names, they have addresses, they have their IDs, and something had to happen. And so fast forward, and the church is involved in all this, and we can come back and discuss that, but on a group of students, just ordinary students. And that's the reason I love dealing with students, because they believe in a dream. They think a revolution can happen. Right. In fact, it was asked to us, when are y'all going to have a revolution?
Right.
Yeah. But anyway,
a lot of people are asking
we've got people on the streets. They have their opinions about our government. But anyway, a group of students went, we choose to rebel. And that's the word they use, rebel. And in order to...
I thought we can't use the word rebel. I thought that was all negative. You're not allowed to use it.
Well, over there, it became a connotation of, all right, so the Army, which has stayed neutral, they are not, it is not a military coup going on, okay? The military is just trying to keep order. They say, if you're going to rebel, you got to give us your name, your ID number, and you have to sign a signature to these students. The adults are all standing back. They're not involved. In the first week, 5 million students signed that card saying, we choose to rebel. We want to recall this vote for Morsi. Then that's when everyone started jumping on. By the second week, there were 11 million signatures. People going, hey, this is over. Finally, the general of the Army came on television and said, we've got to do something. And there was a week given for dialogue for Morsi and the people, to which he did not do anything. What we were told, didn't do anything, kept pressing this, persecuting people now, telling two generals, go out there and kill those folks. We got to get rid of them. General's going, no, that's not going to happen. The general comes on television and says, if the people of Egypt choose to rebel, we need to hear you within 48 hours. And when that happened, over 30 million Egyptians went to the streets going, we want Morsi out of office. May I remind you, only 13 million Egyptians voted for Morsi. Now, 30 million Egyptians are coming out going, he's out of there, okay? And so they removed him, and as soon as that happened, boy, violence just took over the streets, because Muslim Brotherhood went, we're losing control. Well, this is a very strategic place for us.
Why? Tell the people, why is Egypt so strategic for the Muslim Brotherhood?
If you study the Middle East, half of all the Christians in the Middle East live in this country called Egypt.
Because it was basically a secular country. It really was not a Muslim, they want to, that's what the Brotherhood wants to do.
Right.
But it was pretty much, hey, whatever your belief system is,
sure.
You roll with it.
Right. And you couldn't evangelize. Yeah. But people could come to know Christ.
Right. And in the Christian church, as far as the Middle East is concerned, 50% in Egypt.
50%.
So if the Muslim Brotherhood can shut that church movement down in the Middle East, that's huge.
Right, exactly. If they can take that to an Islamic state, a military state, all of the Middle East would be controlled. So.
And tell the people, because you sent us this while you were there, and we'll come back and we'll have actual Egyptians, some of them that you got on your phone. But you said the Muslim Brotherhood even attempted, they burned churches. One of the pastors, if I'm using the right term, his son was shot. And if he had not moved, would have killed him. And the shot ended up hitting him in the stomach as opposed to the head, because of him making a step down right before the shot went off and all that. So they were being persecuted, and they would put up signs saying, we forgive you.
Yeah, one pastor said, you think about it as a husband and as a father, that in our country, when we're asking Jesus to show up, he said, in America, you always have plan B. He said, we don't have plan B. He said, there's no one to call. There's nothing to do. God's going to have to provide for us. One pastor had his church burned, literally burned. He put a big banner in front of the church saying, we forgive you. And in that room, he said, it's a lot easier to hate than it is to choose to love. But when he did that, it literally had two reactions. One, it caused a lot of people to question, why is one religious group so hateful and mean, and why is another one so filled with love and joy even when they're persecuted? Okay, so it caused a lot of people to start questioning. The second thing that took place was it caused the cultural Muslim community, not religious Muslim, but cultural Muslim community to go, why aren't you fighting back? This is not the way we
Which
were
is
brought
what the language that they understand.
Right. Fight. So it caused the entire nation to step back. The next day after his church was burned, his son, who's a physician, was out in the middle of the square standing up for Christ, and he was shot. I'm telling you, this guy, conviction was hitting Dawson, because I'm used to rising up. We live in the USA, bless God. We get in a tizzy if one of our privileges are taken away. These guys are living day to day by survival, and they've chosen to love people to Jesus than try to militarily, swat them down to come to Jesus. That's how the world's going to come to know Christ.
We'll be back.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
We're at the Rick and Bubba Show. We're back. Scott Dawson, Scott Linning from the Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association, back from Cairo, Egypt. The headlines even today, if you've missed this, you need to go back and listen to it, because it's been really interesting to hear from the people on actually what is taking place in Egypt, not some filtered version that you're getting from the American press. Again, today, here's another one. Egypt arrests deputy head of Muslim Brotherhood Party. Dawson just told us that the people demanded that Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate, be removed because he was not elected by the people, that he actually lost the election, and the military said, you must show us how many of you want this to take place. They took to the streets by the millions, so the military helped them to overthrow Morsi. They have him in custody, and it says they have arrested one of his head people, and that the radical Islamist and the Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood, reject the new government and insist that Morsi be reinstated. But Dawson, here's the thing again, as I read this, it sounds like the military has done this coup, when you're saying that isn't correct. It was actually the people.
Well, yeah, the military did it all off of the urgency, and for the people. And later on, the general comes back out and says, if you would like for us to make terrorism illegal, go to the streets again, and even more Egyptians, millions, some estimates 45 million Egyptians go to the streets, say, get rid of this stuff. That's the reason they're arresting these guys. A very crucial date coming up, November 4th, is when Morsi goes on trial. And we need to pray for Egypt, because from now until then, it's very volatile.
It'll be very volatile. Now, we're also led to believe when Obama was elected that all these hardliners of the past had hurt our relationship with the Middle East, and that Obama would then make us liked again in the Middle East, that he would solve and put salve on the wounds of how they feel about America. Here's a young Egyptian, and he's telling you exactly how he feels about Obama and America. So
I don't like Obama. I hate Obama. I love Bush. I like Bush.
So there he is. I do not like Obama. I wish we had Bush.
Yeah. Here he is again. It continues.
All right.
No Obama. Careful. Obama, no.
Obama, no. So let me ask you this. Now let's talk about the church and what's going on there. We said that 50% of Christians in the Middle East reside in Egypt, and they are persecuted quite a bit, especially when the Muslim Brotherhood thought they had the upper hand and thought they had come to power. But their views of where we are as Americans, I thought, was incredibly interesting.
Yeah, because we went over there to try to encourage them. In fact, it was not only were we encouraged, I was stinking convicted.
Right.
Because we always want to do the American way. Let's go over there and help somebody. And so we were sitting in a room, and one of the guys suggested that we bring over some of our pastors. Let's bring the best of the best over here just to encourage your pastors. And one of the pastors went, no, that in my spirit, that didn't feel right. And we were like, excuse me? You don't want our help? And he was like, no, it's not. We want your prayers. And he said, we don't want you to pray for the persecution to stop.
Right.
Because he said, in the midst of the persecution, there's blessings.
Every time.
And he said, quite honestly, we're praying for you in your country, because we as Christians know what we've walked through and we're prepared for it. And then he said, you don't know what you're about to walk through. And that's, I was like, oh my gosh, a word of prophecy. So we were going to bring some pastors over for a retreat. And the guy said, no, we really don't want you to do that, because we're afraid you'll distract us. Because we're so involved in being after the Holy Spirit and just being obedient to Him, that when you come, you'll try to be a blessing, but you'll actually be a curse, because we'll be envious of what you have. And we'll try to, some of our pastors may go, man, I can go that country and not face persecution. I can go to that country and not experience what I'm walking through. And they say, right here is on the midst of revival. Remember what Vance Havner said. He said, if Christians knew what revival cost, they'd stop praying for it. Because
wow.
Most of us think revival is a 4-day conference in our local church, but revival comes out of desperation. The country, Egypt is, the spiritual community of Egypt is going through revival. We've got some video of a place we went to that we'll show. But in the last 6 months, one pastor was speaking, and he said, in the last 6 months, we've had over 500,000 Egyptians come to know Christ. 500,000 through one online internet site. Now, if it's like us, we go, well, did you really get the information? Well, in order for this to work, they had to get their name, their ID, and their address. They're asking for people to come and help follow up on these people because what they're seeing is just a move of God across their country. Interestingly enough, during the midst of this voter recall, or the revolution, what I've heard is there's two revolutions. There's one revolution. It just, when they removed Morsi, that was the second wave of the revolution.
This has all been the same revolution.
It's the one revolution. They're just trying to find it. But we were at a place called the Cave Church. And if I could it'd be like going to a cavern, walking down into it, but being met with 10,000 people.
Look at this. If you've got us on Heartland or Ustream,
you can turn it up.
You need to look at this. Look at this church inside this cave. 10,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish all of you could see this. Picture any cavern that you visited on a tourist stop, and there's like it's for where we live, DeSoto Caverns. Yeah. Picture being down in a giant cavern, and there's a church in there. I mean, it's gigantic.
It is.
So that's incredible.
Yeah, and to us, you had to go through a place called Garbage City, and 800,000 people live there, and a majority of them have come to know Christ. But they live in the garbage dump. They don't have recyclables, so what you do is you make your living out of everything you pull out of the trash. So we're driving through there. It stinks.
Man.
I mean, your stomach, Americans, we get road sick because there's no, paved roads.
Right.
You're just going through this, you smell it, and all of a sudden you walk down into a cave and you just, pow, the Holy Spirit is just so powerful there.
Yeah.
And you see guys and gals that have nothing but joy. And we drive around our city and we see big homes but empty hearts. It's not about having stuff.
It goes back to this. When you get to the point that all you've got is Christ, you realize that's all you needed.
Exactly.
I mean, and some of us have been to that place, but as far as day to day, we're not there. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're blessed. But what I'm saying is I don't think we should miss the moment when these pastors who the church is being persecuted like we can't even imagine. By the way, the church we're all a part of has been persecuted throughout time. Now, we as Americans, and the times that we've been alive, we haven't experienced it. We think persecution is let's pray at a ball game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, we've never experienced true persecution. And what this guy is saying, and I've been fortunate enough to go to the Middle East too, and some other places where it's hard, and they go, see, we're hardened. It's like somebody saying, and I hate to use this analogy, but Americans get it. It's one thing to walk into a football game after you've been training for it for an entire year. It's another thing to just walk up and all of a sudden the game's begun, they throw you out in the middle of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And what he's saying is we're prepared for persecution because we're hardened, we're going through it, we live it. Your persecution is coming, and for generations you are so soft, you are ill prepared for it. But it's coming. And when you hear these things that are going on in Egypt, they're eerily familiar. The way the way votes are rounded up, the way the things you say. Remember what they said when the Muslim Brotherhood went into power. Here's food, here's water, here's cell phone cards. Vote for us. You keep getting gifts if you keep voting for us. I mean, that sounds eerily familiar.
It did.
I mean, and so. If you're a Christian and you're listening to this show, persecution is coming. I mean, I think it's almost like you saying, I don't exactly know, like Jesus told us, you may not exactly know when the baby is going to be born, but you can tell it's coming.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I don't know, some of you, it may not be in your lifetime, but it's what we're experiencing now, to quote Bachman Turner Overdrive. You ain't seen nothing yet.
No.
You know what I mean?